In this video, we tell you everything about the evolution of money and the three possible scenarios we face as a society. Watch this if you want to be prepared for a frightening future. From trading fish and grain to scanning a phone in seconds, the story of money is really the story of trust. Every civilization has asked the same question: what's valuable and why? We've gone from bartering goods to stamping gold to printing paper to creating invisible digits that move at the speed of light. Each leap made life easier, but also riskier. This is the history of how humanity built, broke, and reinvented the idea of payment itself. Long before banks, coins, or credit cards, human trade was built on one simple idea: exchange what you have for what you need. A farmer with too much grain might trade with a hunter who had extra meat. A potter could swap bowls for fruit or tools for wool. It was practical, personal, and immediate. But as communities grew, so did the cracks in this system. What if the hunter didn't want grain that day? What if the potter's bowls weren't ready yet? Every transaction required two people to want exactly what the other had at the same time. A problem economists later called the double coincidence of wants. This made barter clumsy and unreliable. Trade worked in small villages where people knew each other, but across regions it collapsed. There was no universal measure of value, no way to store wealth for the future, and no easy way to split or compare goods. How many apples equal a cow? How much fish is worth a woven basket? It was all negotiation every single time. Still, barter wasn't useless. It was a foundation. It taught early humans how to assign value, how to negotiate, and how to build trust through exchange. That trust became the backbone of civilization. People began looking for something that could simplify trade, something everyone would recognize, desire, and accept. It didn't need to feed you or keep you warm. It just needed to represent value. Over time, certain goods, salt, shells, beads, metal, emerged as early forms of universal currency. These weren't chosen by kings or laws, but by collective agreement. Humanity was starting to make a psychological leap, from trading survival to trading belief. The age of barter was ending, and the concept of money was being born. After the chaos of bartering, people began searching for something more universal, something everyone valued, regardless of where they came from. That search gave birth to commodity money, physical goods that held real, intrinsic value. These weren't arbitrary tokens. They were items people genuinely needed or desired. Salt, for example, was so essential for preserving food that Roman soldiers were sometimes paid in it. That's where the word salary comes from. Sal, Latin for salt. In other parts of the world, people used cattle, furs, tea, beads, or even blocks of compressed cocoa as money. The key idea was simple. These items had value on their own. A cow could provide milk, meat, or labor. A bar of metal could be forged into tools. A pouch of salt could literally keep you alive. That practicality made them trusted and tradable. But the real breakthrough wasn't just the object, it was the shared belief behind it. Once everyone agreed that something was valuable, it became currency. Of course, commodity money had limits. Some items spoiled, others were too bulky to carry long distances. Imagine trying to pay rent with 10 cows or dragging bags of salt across mountains. Trade was still slow, local, and vulnerable to theft or decay. But the concept changed everything. Now value could be stored, carried, and measured. People no longer needed direct barter. They could trade goods for a common medium and use that to buy whatever they wanted later. It was the first time in history that humans separated the act of exchange from the object being exchanged. The seeds of money had sprouted, and soon that idea, trading value instead of goods, would take on a new form that glimmered in the sunlight: metal. When people discovered metal, trade changed forever. Metals like copper, silver, and gold had something no cow, shell, or sack of grain could match: durability. They didn't rot, rust, or decay. They could be melted, shaped, divided, and carried. And unlike salt or tea, their value didn't vanish with use. The earliest metal money appeared in Mesopotamia and China thousands of years ago, when merchants began exchanging small pieces of bronze or silver by weight. At first, every trade still required trust. You had to know the weight was fair and the metal was pure. But then came a revolution. Around the 7th century BC, the Lydians, in what's now Turkey, minted the first standardized coins. Each piece of metal was stamped with a mark from the local ruler, a guarantee of weight and authenticity. For the first time, value was certified by authority, not just trust. That simple innovation made trade faster and safer. A stamped coin could move across borders and still be accepted because everyone believed in the symbol behind it. Gold and silver quickly became the global language of trade. Empires rose on their backs, from Greece to Rome, from Persia to China. Soldiers were paid in coins, merchants built fortunes with them, and entire economies ran on their circulation. People didn't just see shiny metal, they saw power, stability, and control. But with every coin came temptation. Kings learned they could stretch their wealth by reducing the metal content, keeping the same stamp while quietly cutting the silver or gold inside. It was the first case of inflation by design. Humanity had finally solved the problem of trade, and at the same time planted the seeds for financial manipulation that would echo for millennia. Carrying heavy metal coins was a pain, especially if you were a merchant traveling long distances. Gold and silver were valuable, yes, but also dangerous. A single robbery could wipe out your fortune, so people started looking for something lighter, safer, and easier to move. The solution came from an unexpected source: paper. In 7th century China, merchants began depositing their coins with trusted agents who issued handwritten notes as proof of deposit. Those slips of paper could then be exchanged for goods and later redeemed for metal. They were, in essence, the world's first banknotes, and they changed everything. By the 11th century, the Chinese Song dynasty had fully embraced this new idea, printing official government notes known as jiaozi. Each note represented a promise that you could always trade it for a set amount of gold or silver held in reserve. This trust transformed trade. You didn't need wagons full of metal anymore, you just needed paper. And because paper was light, long-distance trade exploded. The Silk Road boomed. Merchants could cross entire continents, carrying their wealth in folded sheets instead of chests. When the idea reached Europe centuries later, it spread like wildfire. Goldsmiths in England began issuing receipts to customers who stored gold in their vaults. People realized those receipts could be traded directly instead of collecting the gold each time. Banks were born, and money became even more abstract, value backed by a promise rather than something you could touch. But this new power came with risk. If too many people demanded their gold back at once, the system collapsed, a run on the bank. Still, the leap from metal to paper was irreversible. Humanity had traded weight for trust and convenience for control. The age of paper promises had begun. By the 19th century, paper money had gone global, but people still wanted assurance that every printed bill was worth something real. That reassurance came in the form of the gold standard, a system that tied the value of every national currency directly to gold. In simple terms, every dollar, pound, or franc could be exchanged for a fixed amount of the metal. It was elegant. Paper represented gold, and gold represented wealth. Confidence in money came from the belief that governments would always honor that exchange. Britain was the first to adopt the gold standard in the early 1800s, and other major economies quickly followed. It brought stability to global trade. Merchants could ship goods across oceans without worrying about fluctuating currencies. Investors could move money between countries, knowing gold kept everything anchored. For nearly a century, this system fueled industrial expansion and globalization. But it wasn't perfect. Wars, recessions, and political greed constantly tested it. When governments spent more than they had, they were tempted to print extra money, but they couldn't without more gold. That discipline was both the system's strength and its curse. During World War I, nations abandoned the standard to pay for the massive costs of war. Afterwards, some tried to restore it, but the world had changed. Economic shocks like the Great Depression exposed the fragility of tying a modern economy to a finite resource. By 1933, the United States had abandoned the gold standard domestically, and in 1971, President Nixon ended it globally. From that moment, money was no longer backed by gold, just government decree and collective faith. The gold standard had given the world financial order for a century, but in the end, trust, not metal, became the foundation of modern money. When gold was finally removed from the equation, money entered its most abstract phase yet, fiat currency. The word fiat comes from Latin, meaning "let it be done." In other words, money now had value not because it could be exchanged for gold or silver, but simply because government said so and because people collectively believed it. A dollar was worth a dollar only as long as everyone agreed to play along. This new system gave governments and central banks enormous power. No longer constrained by gold reserves, they could print or destroy money at will, adjusting the supply to steer the economy. The United States Federal Reserve, founded in 1913, became the ultimate example. By raising or lowering interest rates, the Fed could encourage borrowing, control inflation, or cool an overheated market. Other nations soon built their own central banks to manage currencies the same way. At first, it worked. The ability to expand or contract the money supply helped countries survive wars, rebuild after depressions, and fund massive infrastructure projects. But it also introduced a new kind of danger: human discretion. When politicians and bankers could create money out of thin air, discipline often gave way to temptation. Print too much, and inflation erodes savings. Print too little, and recessions deepen. The balance between growth and stability became a delicate game of psychological trust. By the late 20th century, nearly every country on Earth used fiat money. It made trade faster, credit easier, and global finance limitless. But it also untethered the world from anything tangible. Money was no longer metal or even paper. It was belief, measured in digits on a screen. And while that gave humanity incredible economic freedom, it also made the entire system frighteningly dependent on confidence alone. By the mid-20th century, carrying stacks of cash felt outdated. People wanted a faster, safer way to pay, something modern that matched the pace of post-war life. Enter the credit card, a small piece of plastic that completely transformed how we spend, borrow, and even think about money. The first modern card appeared in 1950 when the Diners Club introduced a simple idea: one card you could use at multiple restaurants, with the bill arriving later. It was convenience turned into currency. Soon, banks and major companies saw the potential. American Express launched its own card in 1958, followed by Bank of America's Bank AmeriCard, which would later evolve into Visa. The concept spread like wildfire. A thin rectangle of plastic could now buy you almost anything: groceries, gas, plane tickets, all without handing over cash. It wasn't just about convenience, it was about trust. The cardholder trusted the bank to pay the merchant, and the bank trusted the cardholder to repay the debt. That invisible promise fueled a new kind of economy built on credit. Then came debit cards, which offered the same speed without the borrowing. Introduced widely in the 1970s and 80s, they linked directly to your bank account, instantly transferring funds at the swipe of a magnetic strip. What once took minutes with cash or checks now took seconds. Plastic money changed culture as much as commerce. It normalized debt, enabled global travel, and made spontaneous spending almost effortless. But it also blurred the line between what people had and what they owed. The phrase, "buy now, pay later," became both a luxury and a trap. Still, credit and debit cards made money portable, personal, and digital. A stepping stone toward a world where physical cash would soon start to disappear entirely. As technology advanced through the late 20th century, money continued its invisible transformation. The rise of electronic payments changed commerce from something physical to something instant and digital. No more counting bills, writing checks, or waiting for bank hours. Computers could now move money across the world in seconds. The foundation for this shift began in the 1960s with systems like SWIFT, which allowed banks to securely send payment instructions across borders. By the 1980s, electronic funds transfers, EFTs, and automated clearinghouses, ACH, became standard, letting salaries, bills, and taxes move quietly through invisible wires. For consumers, this revolution was subtle but seismic. Direct deposit replaced the paycheck envelope. Utility bills could be paid automatically. Online shopping, unthinkable just decades earlier, became routine by the late 1990s. Companies like PayPal, launched in 1998, turned email addresses into digital wallets, letting people send and receive money with a click. The concept of cash began to fade. Money became data, measured in bytes instead of bills. For businesses, the speed of electronic payments reshaped everything. It reduced fraud, eliminated delays, and unlocked the modern global economy. Small merchants could sell products internationally. Freelancers could work across continents. The world's financial heartbeat now pulsed through fiber optic cables instead of counting houses and coin chests. But with convenience came dependency. Every transaction now required trust, not in gold or paper, but in servers, software, and network security. One blackout, one cyber attack, and entire systems could freeze. Electronic payments had made money borderless, frictionless, and incredibly efficient, but also intangible and fragile. Humanity had finally created a world where value could move faster than thought, yet depended entirely on electricity, code, and an unspoken faith in the machines that keep the economy alive. In the 1960s, another quiet revolution changed how people interacted with their money: the birth of the ATM. Before that, banks kept strict hours, and if you needed cash after 5 o'clock or on weekends, you were out of luck. That changed in 1967 when Barclays Bank in London unveiled the first automated teller machine. It wasn't digital yet. Customers inserted a paper voucher impregnated with carbon-14, and the machine spit out a fixed amount of cash. But it was revolutionary. For the first time, money could be accessed without a human banker. Soon, technology evolved. By the 1970s, ATMs accepted plastic cards linked directly to your account, protected by a new invention, the Personal Identification Number, or PIN. This 4-digit code, created by Scottish inventor James Goodfellow, became the invisible key to personal banking. The idea was simple but profound. Your money could live safely inside a system, and only you could unlock it. By the 1980s, ATMs spread globally. People could withdraw cash, check balances, or even deposit money 24 hours a day. It changed consumer behavior completely. Banks no longer defined access. Technology did. Late-night cash runs became normal, and banking hours started to disappear. The PIN system became the foundation for digital security long before smartphones and apps existed. It trained billions to protect their financial identity with a secret code. a habit that still underpins modern authentication systems today. Yet with all this convenience came a new kind of risk: skimming devices, stolen cards, forgotten PINs. Still, the trade-off was worth it. The ATM turned money into something personal, private, and instant, a bridge between the physical and digital eras of finance, and a symbol of the modern trust between humans and machines. By the early 2000s, money was no longer just something you held. It lived inside screens. Online banking changed everything. Instead of standing in line at a branch, you could log in, transfer funds, pay bills, or check balances from your computer. It felt like science fiction at first, typing a few numbers and watching your money move in real time. But by the mid-2000s, nearly every major bank had a website, and financial management began its migration into the digital world. Then came the smartphone, and with it, mobile banking. The true beginning of money on demand. Apps like Chase Mobile, Revolut, and Monzo put an entire bank in your pocket. You could send money, freeze a card, or split a restaurant bill before the waiter even returned with the check. Suddenly, financial control wasn't tied to geography or opening hours. You could be on a beach in Portugal or on a train in Tokyo, and your entire financial life was still just a few taps away. But the real shift came with mobile payments. Apple Pay, Google Pay, and later services like Venmo, Cash App, and Zelle blurred the line between banking and messaging. Sending money became as casual as sending a text. A quick face scan or fingerprint replaced the PIN. The wallet, once a physical object stuffed with cash and cards, turned into an app icon. This convenience changed behavior more than people realized. Spending became frictionless. The act of handing over cash, a moment that used to sting, disappeared. But so did waiting for deposits, carrying wallets, or losing checks. Online and mobile banking didn't just digitize money, they digitized trust. And in doing so, they paved the way for the next frontier, a world where physical currency might soon become obsolete altogether. In 2009, in the aftermath of the global financial crisis, a mysterious figure named Satoshi Nakamoto released a 9-page document online titled Bitcoin, a peer-to-peer electronic cash system. It proposed something revolutionary, a way to send money directly between people. No banks, no governments, no middlemen. Just math, code, and a shared digital ledger called the blockchain. This was not another payment app or online bank. It was the first currency built entirely on decentralized trust, a system that ran itself. To understand why Bitcoin mattered, you have to remember the timing. In 2008, the world had just watched major banks collapse, governments print trillions, and entire economies buckle under their own debt. People felt betrayed by the financial system that claimed to protect them. Bitcoin was the rebellion, digital gold for a new era. Its supply was capped at 21 million coins, making it immune to inflation or manipulation. Instead of trusting bankers, users trusted cryptography, a network of computers verifying every transaction transparently and permanently. At first, hardly anyone cared. The first known purchase was 2 pizzas for 10,000 bitcoins, an amount now worth hundreds of millions of dollars. But slowly, communities formed. Miners competed to solve cryptographic puzzles and earn coins. Tech enthusiasts saw it as freedom, money that no government could freeze, tax, or track. Then came volatility. Bitcoin's price soared, crashed, and soared again. Critics called it a bubble. Believers called it the future. Whether genius or madness, it had proven one thing. People were ready to question the very foundation of money. Bitcoin wasn't just another currency, it was a movement, a statement that faith in math might one day replace faith in institutions, and the world of finance would never be the same again. As money becomes fully digital, the world stands on the edge of 3 radically different futures, and which one we end up in depends on who wins the battle for trust. The first path is centralized control. Governments roll out fully digital currencies, CBDCs, where every transaction is instant, tax-proof, and trackable. It's efficient, safe, and impossible to counterfeit. But there's a price: total visibility. In this future, privacy becomes optional, and financial freedom depends on rules written by institutions. For many countries, this is the path of order, but also the path of surveillance. The second path is digital chaos. If trust in governments and banks collapses, and crypto remains too volatile, money fractures. Different platforms, currencies, tokens, and corporate coins compete for dominance. Wealth becomes scattered across apps, chains, and wallets. Some become rich, others lose everything overnight. It's fast, messy, innovative, and unstable. In this world, money behaves more like the internet, borderless, wild, and constantly changing. The third path is decentralized freedom. Here, blockchain currencies stabilize, governments regulate lightly, and digital assets become as normal as bank accounts. People store value in decentralized networks that no single authority can control. Privacy tools evolve, but so do protections against fraud and abuse. Money becomes programmable, global, and transparent without sacrificing personal freedom. It's a system built on math instead of politics, and choice replaces force. These three futures aren't fantasies. They're already unfolding in real time, one in China, one on the internet, one in emerging crypto economies. The real question is which path the world will choose, and whether ordinary people get a say in the story of money's next evolution.